This is the worst podcast in the history of podcasts. Nobody listens. The ratings are a disaster. Total amateurs running it. Very unfair to me. And frankly, people are saying it should be taken off the air immediately.
Welcome to the fourth episode of That's Not the Message, the podcast where true policy/communicators are trying to find answers to the key question of our time, which is how can we progressives, pro-Europeans, continue winning or even win back again the public narrative for the values that we hold dear and the causes that we feel that are the just ones, and that for many reasons, most of the people, when they are called to an election or where they are called to make an important decision, they fall for the narratives of our adversaries. So here's us, Sebastian Rodriguez,
Daniela Vancic,
trying to answer that complex question. Today we have on That's Not the Message, is a very controversial one, which is defend democracy is not the message. And we're going to try to unpack what we mean, but we should say that we are pretty democracy believers.
We're pro-democrats, but
Yeah.
defend democracy alone is not the message.
I would start, and I always start when talking to especially a lot of people in EU affairs and communicators, and in the pro-democracy camp, with this idea that not everyone equates democracy to something good, and as much as we do, because we know all the benefits and we know all the, we can recite all the benefits of democracy by, in our sleep, maybe. But that's not obvious for most people. Because if you link democracy, which is today centered around the act of voting, and you were in southern Spain, living with the onset of democracy, and you were like 18 years old, and you casted your first vote for a political party, and then you've done that every 4 or 3 years, depending on the election, and then you look at your situation now, and your situation is no better than 10, 20 years ago. In fact, it's the opposite. And voting every 4 or 5 years hasn't delivered, those benefits for you. Then, of course, you will say, well, what's the point on democracy? And perhaps if we had a strong man or woman doing the things that need to be done, whichever those are, or from the left, you can see many young people getting impatient with democracy because maybe it's not taking the climate crisis as a crisis itself. And in the people on the more right end of the spectrum, maybe they think that they need more measures around border controls or about something to address their cultural or anxiety, right? So maybe democracy doesn't have many answers to those people. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to expand the scope of how we see democracy. It's not just the voting. I mean, even though, I always say this, but like our societies, we moved so quickly. We're in a, on-demand kind of society. If you want to eat Indian food tonight, you simply order from your app on your phone and you get it in 30 minutes. If you want to watch a new movie that's come out, you don't have to wait until next month. It's in the cinema. You get it immediately, on demand. We're in an on-demand society, and our decision-making processes are like stuck in the 19th century. It's not very on demand. So we need to expand like how we see democracy. I mean, my answer to that is always bring in more citizen participation processes, bring citizens more into not just the debate, but really also the decision-making aspect of it. But like, it's also, until we get there, we also need to it's kind of our job as democracy communicators and democracy defenders to tell people that, this democratic way of living that we have affects every part of your life. It's not just the voting every 3, 4, 5 years, but it's also like the freedoms that you enjoy. It's also like the liberties that you have and the rights that you have. It's the whole democratic society. And, autocrats they have one thing that they do well, and this is what we have to be up against, is that they find shortcuts to things. They find shortcuts, and that is like answering more to this on-demand society that people that they want to have. They, say, well, I feel like government is not responding to me, and then an autocrat's response will be like, okay, well, we can cut parliament.
Exactly. Exactly. And also I think you touch on something interesting, which is people will also understand that things take time. I think that is always like the thing with democracy. I always link it, and the things with the European Union, I always link it to the decisions we all make. I mean, if you live in a flat, right, and you have like a community, and then you need to decide on things like, for example, the cleaning company that cleans the stairs, or the elevator company that gets broken every now and then. Or if you have a swimming pool, you have to agree on when you open the swimming pool, when you close the swimming pool. Something very normal in southern Europe, maybe not so normal up in the continent in northern one. But those are, people do understand that even when you live in a place with people who are very homogeneous, who are very same level of, purchasing power, because you all bought the same type of flat, like probably share life experiences. You grow up in the area, in the region, etc. How hard it is to agree on things, and conflict, and the conflict that is also results from that. But what they will understand is the need to, if we don't make the effort to find solutions that bring the majority in, never at the expense of a minority. So you cannot agree on these groups to on a rule that is going to hurt one of the property owners, right? I think that's one rule that everyone. But you sometimes do need to make decisions, make tough decisions, and people get that. The thing is, if you don't show if you don't communicate delivery of we try to fix or we change the elevator was not working, so we changed the company maintaining the elevator, and it's actually cheaper, and it's gonna make more regular checks on the thing, and this is all the information, right? So these people do, if they don't see delivery and the process is already tedious, then people start saying, you know what, maybe we need to find alternatives. And there are people out there who are giving us lots of alternatives, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think we need to lean into those that are good at delivering the message. We talked about this a little bit, but it's the policies are good. Like what we have on the pro-democracy side, our policies are widely much more popular than what's on the pro-autocracy side. And I think people understand, we should have rule of law. Like these are good policy and popular policy. But what we've had issues with is finding the right messenger. Like what we could really do is bring in more of that fresh blood, that excitingness. Unfortunately, the far right is done better at storytelling. Like we say, like Trump, he is much better of a storyteller than what we've been able to put forward from the Democrats' candidate side of things. And their party seems cooler. Like they seem like they have a cooler party. But then at the end of the day, they're trashing the neighborhood.
Exactly.
They're going to be a nuisance for all the neighbors. Like they're not making the community better because they're in it for themselves.
Exactly.
So even if they seem like from the surface the party's cooler, we need to get better at sending out our invitations and having like a cooler messaging and party. But and like then to really, when we're in power, Democrats, when we come back, and the same Democrats that are in power in Europe now, we need to like properly make use of that time and communicate why the party has been so cool, like why we have been able to deliver for people. Like we need to show off a little bit more. Like we need to be a little bit more proud of the things that we have accomplished and what we've been able to get past. We're way too humble. Like we're way too humble.
And going back also to our premise, which is defend democracy alone, is not the message. That's not the message. Democracy, you need to break it down into things that are more relatable. For example, you said rule of law. Even rule of law, no one understands what rule of law is, but everyone understands things like, I want to open a business and I don't need to pay a bribe to the local politician so that I get the license for my...
Or I don't get arrested for no reason.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Or, for example, when we are talking, we ran a campaign for the 2024 European elections, where we did some research with the European Movement International to see how people see and perceive democracy, but also more broader than democracy, like the way that we have to live, no, our way of life, and the things that we hold more precious, and it was very different in every country. I mean, if we had gone down even to a smaller like territorial unit, like a region or a city, it would have got more complex. But you will see like many different differences across regions, and for example, Southern Europeans, we like that. Or what we like about our way of living is that there is social justice. Not justice in the more like activist sense, but the sense that everyone should get by, and everyone shouldn't be... if my neighbor, my sister, my friend is doing well, I feel good for that. And even if I could be doing even better, I sort of feel that everyone around me, I am linked to their prosperity, right? And then there is like I wouldn't say social contract, because that's a very theoretical framework, but if you do well, if your friends do well, then you sort of feel okay, and you feel less anxious about other things, right? So this community sense, it was very strong in Spain. So when we were running for this campaign to show people the importance of democracy, then we said, with a series of videos, when two people were having a conversation, and then one of them gets a call from the sister who finally got a job, and he was very happy because she had been trying for so long, and finally, she was like really, she was feeling even better himself, just because his network, his inner circle was doing better, and then reflected on how important it is that we put people in power that are like us and that take concerns of the young people at heart. And that can only be done through representation, through fair representation, and actually challenging the people who are in power, because nothing is more popular amongst people in all places than the ability to sack a bad politician. So this idea of I want to put people in power who look like me, who feel like me, who will take care of these injustices. And if you don't do a good job, then I have the opportunity to fire you. That was very, very strong.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of another Michigan story that I have to share. Back from when I was on the campaign trail in 2016, working with the Michigan Democratic Party. And we were going door to door during the primary season. So I was a campaign manager for a candidate running for state representative, so state level. And we were going door to door and doing this listening exercise that we've been talking a little bit about in the last episodes, of active listening. And we were asking, what are your top 3 concerns in your community? And in Michigan, the Great Lakes state, we have the biggest collection of fresh water on planet Earth, and the concern was clean water.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because this was 2016. And in 2015, we had the Flint water crisis, which was basically a story of we had, like also financial crisis in Michigan and in the city of Flint, especially in this time. And an emergency manager was brought in to the city of Flint, who was unelected, it was an undemocratic process, was brought in to basically override the decisions of the mayor on basically all sorts of administrative decisions and public decisions. And the main goal of this emergency manager was cut costs.
Yeah.
Cut the freaking costs and at whatever expense. And that was overriding even the decisions of the mayor. So what they decided to do was move the water supply from from the lakes that we have in Michigan to the Flint River, which is Flint is a very post-industrial city, so lots of waste in the water, and people started to get very sick in Flint. This case even made it to the UN Human Rights Council. Yeah. Kids got like lead poisoning. I mean, to this day, they're suffering the consequences. And so that was in Flint, but then the area that I was campaigning in was not Flint, but still this was affecting now the whole community, the whole Michigan community. We were worried about clean water, and so this is like a story for your autocratic friends, like cutting corners, simply at like, well, we're going to make things more efficient, we're going to make things cheaper, we're going to cut costs. That comes at a cost in itself. And at this point, it came at a serious health cost. And we're still suffering the consequences today in Michigan. There's so much distrust now because, we brought this in. Plus, this was like a case that went up like to the point, Governor Snyder at the time, like it was also proven that he had known, about the cases and complaints that was happening. And didn't do much about it. So it was like a case of serious like negligence, of like community concerns, because Flint is also like a more poor area, lots of poverty, African American, and like that their concerns were not taken seriously. This really had a ripple effect across the whole state of Michigan. Yeah.
So again, you can defend democracy by talking about water.
Yeah.
And talking about the importance of competence and the importance of media. Because I'm pretty sure that the media had something to do in uncovering that story.
Totally, yeah. And doctors.
And doctors.
It was pediatricians,
And independent, maybe independent judges pursuing that and investigating and finally putting the whoever committed an offense or a criminal offense, putting that person behind jars and behind bars. And I think that's democracy. Like wherever, like saying democracy as a word that automatically resonates or that automatically brings like good things to people is a mistake. I think you need to bring it down to the consequences maybe of not having a democracy.
Yeah. Cutting corners.
Or what happens when media freedom is affected. Yeah. Because people don't like that's like if we're talking about trust, this is a cross-cutting because effectively people don't trust anything that has to do with the establishment that has brought us to where we are today. So that means big traditional media, that means big like politicians, that means institutions, and so on and so forth. And I think there is a reality in that. I think media cozy up to power, maybe perhaps too much. And but even more so, it is super important that today we have free, independent media to uncover corrupt practices. It is very important that we have people in power who are youngest, more diverse, closest to the experiences that we have, because only then you can guarantee that the decisions they're going to make are going to be, or at least in principle, they should be, they should address our problems better. And there is not this magic thing that you say, oh, I am defending democracy, and then people automatically get all the wisdom and go to your side. We have to make the effort to make democracy more like the everyday things.
Yeah, and accountable.
And
Accountable. I
yeah.
think that's like the key word that we're missing a little bit in the conversation. We need to have it more accountable to people, and the only way to do that is also to have more exercises and more often brings people into the debate more often, and not just once every the 4-year cycle. You need to hear from them much more often because our concerns are changing, by the month, right? So we need to increase the channels that people can also voice those concerns, and then there needs to be a level of accountability on the other side.
And to wrap up and to throw an idea maybe for a new episode it's about how we, in the same way that we use democracy as a definitive argument or like a win-all argument. The same with the European Union. Sometimes I feel we say, but we need more EU, or we just think, and then we think that by saying that, people will automatically think that the EU is something good, just because we, from our very privileged background, we see the benefits and we know it is good. But how we can also think broader and say, how can we explain things like interinstitutional cooperation or intergovernmental or multilateralism? How can we explain this in a way that people relate to? And I think Mark Carney, in his recent speech in Davos, I think he's into something when he said, we, the middle
Powers
need to get together.
Yeah.
In
Unite.
the same way,
We need to unite.
we need to unite, and we need more people on our side to stand up instead of defend ourselves, to stand up to the bullies, who are definitely China, Russia, and we have a very toxic bully called the United States that sometimes punch our friends. Other times tells us that we're actually the best friends ever.
It's a very abusive relationship.
It's a very abuse. And so we need not only to defend ourselves like victims, we need to stand up. What's our story? We need to bring people all the way from Brazil to Canada to countries that are not strictly inside the European Union, the UK, Georgia, Moldova. There are like people literally dying for us today in Ukraine for the European values.
Yeah.
And we need to tell a better story about Europe and not so much attached to the policies or the buildings in Brussels that are that is what sometimes we fall back on, no, because we feel comfortable, and we need to challenge ourselves a little bit on that. I don't know if you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the message is, and as you're talking to your more skeptical friends, is democracy is like Europe in this case. Like, don't say, democracy's on the ballot, or, we got to defend Europe or something like that. Like, what does democracy mean to people? In some cases, it's water. What does Europe mean to people? Well, it's opportunity, right? It's
security.
It's security. Yeah, totally. And these days, security. It's richness, like of culture, of goods, travel, and that kind of freeness and freedom. Like, find the words, the symbolic words that touch people a little bit more than just Europe, because Europe, people see it in a different way, and not everyone has like the privileged background, like us, to understand Europe in that way. So use those words that people feel.
We often criticize the European, the European institutions and the communications coming from Brussels, and rightly so. I have to say something different, which is I was gladly surprised by the campaign that the European Parliament, I think European Parliament Commission, did a joint campaign celebrating the anniversary of Spain and Portugal joining the EU. And I was thinking, like, I am pretty sure they're going to put the leader, you're going to put Ursula or Metsola or Prime Minister Sanchez or a past Prime Minister on a cozy room like this one where we are now, and they are going to explain what they did to bring the country to the European Union and what it meant and the transformation. I was like, this is going to be like so boring because no one wants to watch current, let alone all politicians, feeling fulfilling their egos. And I was like very like, okay, let's see what they're gonna do. And I was gladly surprised when they had a public teacher, they had a librarian, and outside of the big cities, so not from Madrid, not from Oslo, Lisbon, from like these very small towns.
Yeah.
And then they explain themselves what it meant for them in a very relatable, even funny way. And I say, okay,
That's brilliant. Yeah.
we're into something. Democracy Europe is not the buildings, it's not the policies. Policies change. What's important is the values and is the experiences of the people living there that are, that dignify us and that gives us, the decency that we need to definitely we need decency to cope with the world that we live in. Everyone deserves that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Good. I think we can leave it there.
Perhaps I'm pretty sure this is gonna keep coming back.
Yeah.
But if people who are patient enough to get to the end of this podcast episode and has some ideas or some disagreements, even more than welcome on what we can focus on next, please let us know. All the ways on how to reach us are included in the description of this episode and in the usual ways. And hopefully the next episode is going to be shaped by the people, by our listeners. No? Don't you
Exactly.
think it's a good idea?
Let's practice what we preach and do that active listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniela.
Thank you.
This is the worst podcast in the history of podcasts. Nobody listens. The ratings are a disaster. Total amateurs running it. Very unfair to me. And frankly, people are saying it should be taken off the air immediately.